Hey everyone, it's Peter Kerr from Rock Daydream Nation, and I've got my mate from Canada back to the channel, Tim Durling from Tim's Vinyl Confessions. How are you, Tim?
I'm doing really good, Peter. Ready to do this again. Was it
It,
three of these now we've
yeah,
done?
yeah.
Rock
This
and
is
Roll Hall of
our
Fame?
our
Yeah.
our third annual deep dive into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the faux pas, the misses, what we think should win, etc., etc. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just does not like metal. I'll put it in the genre of hard rock and metal. Have been glaringly omitted. So I'm talking about Thin Lizzy. I'm talking about Iron Maiden. I'm talking about Motorhead. I'm talking about Motley Crue. Like them or hate them. On the basis of all the other genres that get in, talking about those that get in very quickly, there seems to be a bit of an aversion on hard rock and heavy metal. Do you agree?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I think what they did to Judas Priest was shameful. Didn't they put them in sort of the sidemen
Yep.
category?
Yes.
That doesn't even make any sense, Peter. Don't you just get the sense that they said, well, we've got to put them somewhere?
Yes.
They might as well have put them in the R&B category. It makes no
Yep.
sense. If you were going to put Toto in the sidemen category, that makes sense. They were all session guys.
Yep.
Judas Priest were a unit, a band. They didn't play on everybody's albums. And that just that's that old school, that's that same mentality that led the Grammys to choosing Jethro Tull over Metallica in 1989. They just have no idea,
Yeah,
or they don't.
absolutely.
There's
Yeah.
definitely an aversion. Thin Lizzy, now Thin Lizzy, there's an example of a band that was only famous in North America, really, for Jailbreak and The Boys Are Back in Town. But influential, if there's an influential category, they should be in there. They
Big in
influenced you too,
Europe.
for crying, Metallica. I mean, like, a hugely influential band in all walks of music. So they should be in there. Iron Maiden, the number of albums they've sold and how well they've done all over the world as a just an entity, a touring act, they should definitely be in.
And
The
Tim,
only
they're a
thing that
they're a cross generational band because I've been to Iron Maiden concerts and you've got fathers bringing their sons. It's like
Yep,
three generations
absolutely.
of fans. They're
Yep.
not like a metal band that's caught in a time capsule. They're like a
Right.
band that has gone from generation to
Yep.
generation to generation, and they can play from India to Brazil and then go to China. They're universal.
And the iconography of Eddie was so smart, and that's just took on a life of its own too. So there's that. The imagery has helped keep them, that just the sight of Eddie and that logo. You see it everywhere still, on all, like you said, all ages. I see young kids wearing Maiden shirts, right? Buying Maiden pop figurines. Um, yeah, they really should be in. I mean, it just that's one of the more glaring, omissions. Motley Crue should be in. Motley Crue should have gone in before Guns N' Roses. There would be no Guns N' Roses if it weren't for Motley Crue. Never mind,
Yeah,
what I mean. And there's maybe they think it's just the drama is too raw at this point, right? With Mick Mars and the band. But I
yeah.
mean, they sold a lot of albums. They had a lot of hit singles. They should be in, and they're almost known, as personalities too.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so
mean,
yeah, that's another.
If Bon Jovi's in, Motley Crue should be in because Bon Jovi, the early part of the career was hair metal. I don't know who sold more records. You'd know this, Bon Jovi or Motley Crue. They'd be kind of pretty on
Oh,
a
Bon
par
Jovi. Oh, Bon
worldwide.
Jovi. Bon Jovi by a huge margin.
Seriously? Okay, all right.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now
But
Motley
Motley Crue are not
Crue.
too shabby. They're pretty.
No, no. I mean, Motley Crue. Dr. Feelgood sold 5 million in the states. That's their biggest selling
Yeah,
single album. They never had a diamond album. You know.
yeah.
Um, Motley Crue sold, say, more than Rat, which is a band I prefer to Motley Crue, but Rat's never going to get in. But Motley Crue probably will. They probably will eventually. But again, Motley Crue have been eligible since 2006.
Yeah.
So
And they're part of pop culture. Everybody knows them. Everyone knows
absolutely,
the individual members.
yeah,
Everybody has their opinion of a semblance of who they are. for better
Yeah.
or for worse. They're very tabloid.
People who have no idea about the band, that they play music in certain circles,
Yeah,
they know who Tommy Lee is, you know?
yeah,
So the Netflix movie that year, there wasn't a little flare up of interest, but there didn't seem to be.
yeah. Look, I'm sure that they probably have inspired numerous bands to, or folk to pick up the guitar and
You know,
give it a go.
I think even a band like Green Day would cop to that,
Mm.
believe it or
Well,
not.
it goes into the category of who's cool, who's not, who's
Exactly.
going to be ready for the show. Like, I'm
Yeah.
thinking, I've seen a lot of commentary on YouTube, just people's comments that they say if Maiden got in, maybe they would be too overwhelming for the show because it'd be a showstopper. Can you imagine? Because you've got all these different genres in the audience. You've got the rap crowd, you've got
Yeah.
the pop crowd, and then they come out. It'd be sort of like oil and water. It's sort of like, yeah,
But Metallica got in, Sabbath got in. It's not like people aren't AC/DC got in. It's not like people aren't used to heavy, loud guitars.
yeah. But in the old days, I think it was less geared to the
Oh, for sure.
show
I
and
just
to
think
pay
as if
TV and selling tickets to it is now. I think this whole thing is a sham. It's kind of like almost commerce. What's going to sell
oh,
tickets? I think
it
if you had
totally
a
is.
pie graph, 50% is about musical influence and who's worthy, and the rest of it is about what's the storyline and can we sell tickets?
Right. Um, yeah. And you mentioned Motorhead. Well, now there's an example. I don't think Motorhead had a single gold record in the States. They never sold albums, but everybody knows who Motorhead is. Everybody knows who Lemmy is. The influence runs so much deeper than the record sales attest to. Again, in the UK, they had they had big albums, they had big hit singles. And Metallica, like that would be one where you'd have to have, if Motorhead got in, you'd have to have Metallica, somebody from Metallica induct them, I think. But the sad thing is that best known Motorhead lineup, they're all gone. So, but
Yeah,
you could almost throw them in there as influential. You could throw them in there as influential, and I think you should throw them in there. Because how many
absolutely.
times
And
do you see the Motorhead logo on show, almost like the Ramones? You see the snaggletooth thing everywhere.
yeah, t-shirt band. They did make the ballot paper once, like Finn Lizzy, and it was sort of like
Right?
putting the feet in the water, and then you didn't see them again. But
Yeah.
Scorpions,
Scorpions should be in. Scorpions should be in. They sold a lot of albums. What they did as far as breaking down, for a band like that to hit so big in the '80s when the Cold War was underway, pretty big deal. There's no drama with Scorpions. You know, there's no real drama there. I don't think anybody really cares if Herman Rarebell's the drummer. I know the diehard fans would, but you know what I mean? Like there's no real drama there, but I think they would get one of those side categories, if anything.
yeah. Look, they're one of the rare European bands that broke it big in America. Love at First Sting was a huge hit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, I think that there's so many glaring omissions, but I was doing a deep look into the rest of it, and I seriously don't think artists like Dio, Rainbow, Whitesnake, let's be frank, kind of second tier, and we love them, you and I love them
Yeah.
dearly, would ever crack it for a position on the induction.
Whitesnake would never go in. I think David Coverdale knows that he got inducted as a member of Purple. That's going to be his,
Yes, yes.
because Whitesnake were only really, really big for one album. And yes, they've got that one big album that got into a lot of homes. Everybody knows Here I Go Again. Is that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I don't know. It's such a fractured story, right? Because there's been so many Whitesnake lineups, right? Now, and if enough people knew that had something to do with the Hall of Fame, hey, could we get David Coverdale and John Sykes on stage? But number one, nobody knows who John Sykes is.
Absolutely. But I could counterpoint that and say Frampton Comes Alive was like similar to 1987. It was lightning in a bottle.
But it was more mainstream. You know what I mean? It wasn't quote unquote metal.
But Here I Go Again is played on commercials. It's in movies.
It is. It is. No,
It's
I
part
agree
of,
with you.
yeah,
It's not metal at all. It's pop culture. But
yeah,
the name, maybe it's the name. I don't know. I just, as much as I think they're worthy of going in, and Coverdale's written so many great songs. He's another guy. I mean, great singer and musician in his own right. He's also been surrounded by great musicians his entire career.
yeah.
So yeah, so that's why, yeah, I can't see it. Rainbow, again, hugely influential, but never had a gold record in North America, which is crazy when you think about it.
Absolutely.
Dio had 2 or 3 albums that did well, and people kind of know who he is as a figure, but I think that if he was going to go in, they should have inducted him with Sabbath.
Yeah. Status Quo, UK, sold bucket loads of
Yeah,
albums.
exactly.
They do that meat and potatoes boogie, but
Yeah,
outside of Britain and Europe, not well known at all.
nothing.
So,
Unless people remember them from Live Aid. I know who they are. I know very, very little about them. I mean, I could see somebody like, as far as that sort of boogie rock, I could see a band like Foghat going in before Status Quo because they were big in the States,
right. Okay.
or
Blue,
Sweet, or
Blue Oyster Cult.
Blue Oyster Cult. That's an interesting one. That's a really interesting one.
I think second tier because they were like a well-known cult band, but they didn't
Right.
really break through to superstar status. What's their biggest hit? Don't Fear the
But
Reaper.
Don't Fear the Reaper is evergreen. Everybody knows that song. The Saturday Night Live, the More Cowbell sketch, that brought that back. That's still a big song. A lot of people know Burnin' For You. Nobody knows nobody knows the members of the band, but influential, very influential.
Well, I think we've come to the conclusion that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame does not like metal, and considering that the chairman of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's name is John Sykes.
Yeah, isn't that that's kind of weird? I think that John Sykes once had something to do with MTV, if I've got the right guy.
Yeah, they should replace him with the other John Sykes. But I tell you one thing,
David
Coverdale would never be in.
Yeah, but he wouldn't show up, and nobody could find him, and
they put him on milk crates and things like that.